In the summer of 1914, Europe stood at the height of its power. The great empires Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia, and the Ottoman world were bound together by trade, diplomacy, and shared prosperity. Yet beneath the surface lay deep fractures, national rivalries, arms races, territorial ambitions, and political tensions formed an unstable foundation. The continent was a powder keg waiting for a spark. This documentary explores the chain of events that led to the outbreak of the First World War, a conflict that would reshape global history, destroy empires, redraw borders, and take the lives of millions. At the center of this dramatic story stands one moment: the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo. But that gunshot alone did not start the war. It merely ignited a crisis decades in the making. Behind the scenes, governments prepared secret war plans. Alliances formed binding chains of obligation, and nationalist movements pushed Europe toward collision. This is the real story of how the assassination in Sarajevo became the spark that started World War I. To understand why a single assassination triggered a global war, one must look at the Europe of the early 20th century, a continent divided into powerful blocs. On one side stood the Triple Entente: Britain, France, and Russia, an alliance formed to contain growing German power. On the opposite side stood the Triple Alliance: Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, a bloc created to protect Central Europe and counter Russian influence in the Balkans. Beneath this balance of power was a dangerous arms race. France expanded its conscription efforts. Russia modernized its army. Germany built a navy to challenge the British fleet. Prompting panic in London, the great powers spoke of peace while preparing secretly for war. Meanwhile, nationalism burned across the Balkans. Serbia, newly confident after victories in the Balkan Wars, dreamed of uniting all South Slav Serbs, Croats, and Bosnians into a single nation. Austria-Hungary viewed this ambition as an existential threat. Inside the empire, ethnic groups demanded rights, autonomy, or independence. Vienna feared disintegration, and in the shadows political radicals plotted. Secret societies like the Black Hand operated within Serbia, advocating armed resistance against Austrian rule in Bosnia. Europe was not a peaceful continent waiting for a random tragedy. It was a continent waiting for something to set the gears of conflict in motion. That moment came on June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, arrived in Sarajevo as part of a goodwill tour. His goal was to improve relations with Bosnia's diverse population. Yet his presence ignited fury among Serbian nationalists, who saw the Archduke as a symbol of imperial oppression. On that morning, a group of conspirators took their positions along the Apple Quay. They carried bombs, pistols, and cyanide capsules. Their mission: kill the Archduke. The first assassin failed. A bomb bounced off the Archduke's car and exploded beneath the vehicle behind him, injuring several officers. Franz Ferdinand insisted on visiting the wounded at the hospital. A wrong turn brought the Archduke's car directly in front of 19-year-old Gavrilo Princip. In a moment that would change the world, Princip fired 2 shots. One bullet struck the Archduke. The other killed his wife. Sophie, The heir to the Habsburg throne lay dying in the streets of Sarajevo. The assassination shocked Europe. Newspapers reported the tragedy with a mixture of horror and apprehension. Many feared what would happen next. Few imagined that a global war was only weeks away. But in Vienna, leaders interpreted the assassination not as an act of terrorism, but as an attack on the empire itself. Austria-Hungary deliberated for nearly 3 weeks before responding. Its leaders wanted retaliation, but they feared Russia, Serbia's powerful protector. Vienna therefore sought reassurance from Berlin. Germany offered what would later be known as the blank check, a promise of unconditional support. With Germany behind them, Austrian leaders prepared a harsh ultimatum for Serbia. The terms were intentionally severe and designed to be rejected. They demanded Serbia suppress nationalist organizations, purge its military, accept Austrian involvement in domestic investigations, and allow Austro-Hungarian police into Serbian territory. Serbia accepted nearly all of the demands, but rejected the clauses that compromised its sovereignty. Austria-Hungary now had the pretext it needed. On July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. The first domino had fallen across Europe. Alliances began to activate. Russia mobilized in defense of Serbia. Germany prepared for war against Russia. France, bound by treaty to Russia, began mobilizing. Britain grew alarmed as tensions rose. The crisis was no longer regional. It was becoming continental. The war plans of Europe accelerated events. Beyond diplomatic control, Germany's military strategy known as the Schlieffen Plan called for a rapid strike through Belgium to knock France out of the war before turning east toward Russia. On August 1st, Germany declared war on Russia. On August 3rd, Germany declared war on France. On August 4th, German troops crossed into Belgium. Britain, outraged by the violation of Belgian neutrality, declared war on Germany. The British Empire joined the conflict, bringing troops from India, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Africa. Within a single week, Europe had plunged into a war that no leader fully intended and no nation could escape. The spark in Sarajevo had ignited the powder keg. The first battles would be fought on multiple fronts, in the fields of France and Belgium, in East Prussia, in Serbia, and across the vast plains of the Eastern Front. What began with 2 gunshots in Sarajevo became a conflict involving millions. World War I reshaped the 20th century. Over 4 years of brutal fighting, empires collapsed. Austria-Hungary disintegrated. The Ottoman Empire fell. Imperial Russia entered revolution. Giving rise to the Soviet Union, Germany faced defeat and political upheaval. More than 16 million people lost their lives. Entire generations vanished. Societies suffered trauma that would last for decades. The Treaty of Versailles redrew borders and imposed heavy penalties on Germany, sowing resentment that would contribute to the rise of extremism and another global conflict. But at the heart of this colossal tragedy remains this spark, the assassination of an heir to a fading empire. It was not inevitable that Europe would go to war, but the assassination occurred in a world already weakened by rivalry, mistrust, overconfidence, and aggressive nationalism. Europe was ready to burn, and Sarajevo provided the flame. The story of the spark that started. World War I is a reminder of how fragile peace can be and how quickly the world can change.